Hi, in today's video I'm going to be talking about displaying images in Newsboat for YouTube RSS feeds. So this is an article from a YouTube RSS feed, and if I compare that to the actual page, you'll see the main thing that's missing is the thumbnail, the image. Now, Newsboat doesn't support displaying images at all. So that's the first problem. Second problem is if we actually have a look at the feed and the description that gets displayed in Newsboat, you'll see that it's just plain text and there's no HTML for an image. So basically what we're trying to do is use a program that can't display images to display an image in an RSS feed that doesn't have the HTML for an image. So obviously that's a bit of a stumbling block to get round. So what I'm going to do is come across here and uncomment some bits. And then restart Newsboat. Give it a second. Bang, images. So what we've got here is the image. Always does that. We've got the link here. We've got the text, which is all separated, so it's not one big chunk. And additionally, at the bottom, what we've got is the views and the likes. So how did we manage that? Well, what we did was we bypassed Newsboat completely, and we've used W3M to display the feed after we've run it through an XSL style sheet. So what I'm going to do is actually go through the setup and then take you through all the gory details of actually how we get this to work. So what I'll just do is I'll just come through and show you. I've set all these YouTube channels that I subscribe to display images. Okay. So these are all Newcastle ones. Here's DistroTube. Okay, how much nice is that? And one additional note, you see this top up here. This is all on one line. That's because you don't have any option to actually fix that. There's no way you can style that with HTML. That's not something we can fix, but that's just a minor niggle. But if I come through here, you see these all have images. And it's a much nicer experience to actually be able to see the images. You've got the text and you've got the views. So what I'm going to do is actually go through how we set this up. So first of all, Newsboat has a feature called filters, which allow you to take a feed and pass it through a script that outputs XML. So that's the first thing. Well, actually, the first thing is to get Newsboat to display the images. So if I come back across to this section here, this is my Newsboat config. And Newsboat has two options called HTML renderer and pager. By default, what happens is Newsboat uses its own internal HTML renderer to display HTML. And what it does is it just displays it as plain text, and it doesn't display the images. It just gives you a link to the image. Now the pager is the well, it's the thing. It's like a pager, like less, basically. So what we can do is we can swap these two out to use W3M as the renderer and W3M as the pager. Now the difference here is the HTML renderer. What this is going to do is this is going to display in Newsboat the actual source code. We then use the pager set to W3M with the -T option, text HTML, which then displays that as proper HTML. So what we're doing is every time we run Newsboat and we go into an article, what it's doing is it's actually rendering the HTML with W3M and then opening W3M as the pager and actually displaying the source as rendered HTML. So that's the first trick. So that's how we can get Newsboat to actually display images by using W3M instead. So that's the first step. Now, as I said, the next step is this filters. And what you can actually do is take a feed, pass it through a script that then outputs XML. And on the Newsboat documentation, there's a link down here to filters. And this will take you to this page here where there's a script called atom2rss. It was written about 5 years ago by a guy called Rene Pools. And what I've done is actually rejigged this and set it so that it displays the image in the feed. It will basically take the feed from YouTube and restyle it and kind of take bits of the code for the image, the thumbnails, and whack it in the description so that we've actually got a description with an image. So this is the first thing, actually taking this script and using it as a filter. So I've taken this script and modified it, which I'll take you through and show you. And these are the actual steps. So what we've got here is the how-to, we've got a script, and we've got an XSL style sheet. So the steps that we have to go through to get this working, I'll go through the steps and then I'll go through all the gory details of the technical know-how of getting this to work. So first of all, what we need to do is download this YouTube-rss script that I've written. And let me just take you back here. So YouTube-rss, what this does is this uses xsltproc and an XSL style sheet and the URL from YouTube, and then it pipes it into sed. And what that does, the sed part will actually replace empty lines with line breaks, because otherwise you're going to get one big chunk of text. So that's the script. And then what we have is the style sheet here, which I'll go through. So what we do is we copy the script YouTube-RSS to our bin directory, or use a local bin if you like. And this is the contents of the script. We then make the script executable. And after we've done that, what we need to do is install xsltproc, which is a command line application for working with XSL style sheets, which are used to style XML files, basically. So what we need to do is we're going to create a directory in our Newsboat config. So we're going to create config Newsboat style sheets, and that's where we're going to put the style sheet. Then we're going to copy the youtube-rss.xsl to the config Newsboat style sheets directory, and this is the style sheet which I'll go through in a bit of depth. And once we've done that, what we need to do is edit our Newsboat config, and we add these following options, as I mentioned, to set the pager and the HTML renderer to W3M. Now after we've done that, what we need to do is edit our Newsboat URLs file, and I've put this should be URLs, my bad, so I'll fix that after I posted the video. And this is the actual syntax of how you use these filters in Newsboat. What we've got is double quotes, filter, colon, tilde / bin YouTube-RSS, which is the script that we created, and then another colon, and the actual channel here. So that's the actual channel, and then a double quote. Then we've got here the tag, and this section here, double quotes, tilde, distrotube, double quotes. This is how we can set the name of the feed that shows up in Newsboat. Now the other thing that we need to do is in W3M, what we need to do is set it so that in W3M, what we need to do is set it so that any URL gets turned into a link automatically. What I mean by that is normally you'll have a link with a href, link. But what you'll also get with the YouTube description is you'll get URLs, but they'll be in plain text. So they won't have an href tag around them. So what we have to do is set W3M up so that any URLs it finds in text, it automatically turns them into a clickable link. Right, so basically what you do in W3M is you press O on the keyboard, and then you search for display link URL automatically, and you set it to yes. Or you can edit your W3M config file and set display underscore link to 1. So that's the basic setup. So what I'm going to do now is actually go through how we get this to work, and how the XSL style sheet will pull stuff out. What we're going to do is actually take a look at the format of the YouTube feed. So what we've got up here, we've got the feed, we've got the channel, and the bit we're looking for down here is the entry. So this is the entry is actually the bit that gets displayed in Newsboat when you go into an article. So you've got stuff like the ID, and the video ID, channel, you've got title. What you've got here is the link. So this is the actual link to the video. Okay, so you've got the link, and then what you have is another section here, author with the name, and then the channel. You've got published, and then you've got this section here, media group. You've got the title. What you got here is content, and here the important thing is the thumbnail. They've got media thumbnail and the actual link to the thumbnail. And then what we've got here is actually the description. So this is the description, as you can see, is just plain text, one big chunk of text here, with no HTML, no image, and you know, not great to get working with, trying to display an image with something that's got no image link in it. And then finally, what we've got down here is media community, and what that is that's the view count, and we've got the star rating, so that's the likes, and then we've got the views. Okay, so what we need to do is actually figure out how we can change this and get the image, this link from the image, into the description. So let's go through this. And my bad, I actually need to fix this, because as you can see here, there's this block of code here, this chunk here. So what I'll actually do is actually re-add this bit of code, this bit of copyright information from this guide, because it's bad form to remove it. So I will add that back in after the video. It's just, as I was working with it, it was a bit distracting to have to scroll down. So first of all, what we've got here is the XML version 1. And then we've got this thing here, XSL style sheet. And we've got all these things here, XSL, Atom, RDF, media content, Perl. And what we've got down here is this XSL output section. It's saying CData section elements description. And what CData is it's a tag that you put around HTML to indicate that it's HTML to programs, so that they will actually render it. And I'll get into why that's important. So what we have next down here is this template match / atom feed. And what that does is that actually matches this section here. So that matches feed. So feed is like the root, basically. So where is it? Wrong one. So we actually match the root here. And then what we've got is this template section. So this is saying match atom feed. And what it's pulling out is the sort of attributes, sort of like the title, the link, the description. And what it does here is it actually calls these other templates down here. So what happens eventually, we have this atom entry template, and what that does is that matches the entry section down here. So what we got down here is, let me just scroll down a bit. to the actual bit we're interested in. So what you'll see here is when test media group. So if we have a look down here in the entry, what you see is, say we've got the link here which we need to extract. So we need to extract the actual link. So we've got a link to the video. We've got the author up here. But in the media group, what we need to do is we need to pull out the title. We need to pull out the thumbnail, the star rating and the statistics, and somehow shoehorn them into the media description. Now, there's lots of bits to actually go through here. So what we've got here is this section, the media group, and what we're doing is we're saying what we need to do is actually put in these C data elements. We need to put in several C data elements. So what I'm doing is using XSL text, disable output escaping. You can see this sort of C data section here. So what I'm doing is I'm wrapping this following code in C data tags so that it's identified as HTML, because otherwise it's not going to work. So what we've got here is the YouTube thumbnail. So this is obviously HTML code. So div, alt, image, and one thing that I had to figure, which took ages to figure out, is to just, if you don't have an alt tag, the image won't display in W3M. So that took me quite a while to figure out. Now what we've got here is, so we've got an alt tag, we've got an image, the width and the height. Then what we've got is this XSL attribute name source. And what that is that's going to add the source tag here for the image. And what we're doing is saying select media group, media thumbnail at URL. So what that is you can see here media thumbnail. So we've got media group, media thumbnail, URL. So what that's going to do is it's going to go through the hierarchy of the document, find the media group, media thumbnail, and extract the URL. So that's the image taken care of, and what we do is we wrap it in a div and put a BR after it, so we've got a bit of spacing, because otherwise the text will butt up in W3M. So the next thing is the YouTube link. Now, if I come back here and run Newsboat, let's see if I can find one that okay, I can find one. Yeah, here. So this bit up at the top, this is generated by Newsboat. This isn't affected by the HTML renderer or pager, and you've got no way to actually modify this. And the issue is, although this has got, like, you know, the feed, the title, you see the link here is split over 2 lines. So what happens is, if you're in W3M, you can't actually, if I come across, what you see is it's not working as a link in W3M because the text is split over 2 lines. So that's why we need the link here. So you can see down here, that's the link to the video. Right, so that's the link. And again, what we're doing is we're creating an H1 with an ahref tag. And what we do here is we're setting the XML attribute name of the ahref to be equal to atom link at ahref. And what that is this section up here in the, so entry link href. And that basically corresponds to this atom link ahref. And then what we need to do is actually get the title. So there's 2 parts to an ahref. There's the link and there's the actual text. Yeah. So the text, which we're going to be setting as the title, is media group, media title. So if I come across here, you'll see media group, media title. Okay. So that's how we grab the title. And then finally, what we've got down here is YouTube description. So this is the actual description that gets displayed under the video. So that's that's all this text here. So we got description tags. We're wrapping it in a P tag, and we're selecting media group, media description. And that corresponds to this section here, media group, media description, and that's going to pull out the text. Then what we've got is the likes and views. So that's same deal. We've got an unordered list with a span tag. Views, we select media group, media community, media statistics at views. And the same deal for here. We've got media star count. So those correspond to these: media group, media star count, media statistics, views. And that's how we pull that out. And then we have a closing XSL text tag that closes the C data tag. You'll see down here we've got this other tag, content encoded. So if I just scroll back up here, what you'll see is the first tag that I've got is content encoded. So that's critical. There are two bits to it. You have to have the content encoded, and you also have to have the HTML wrapped in C data tags. Now the other thing is, if you have a description tag and a content encoded tag, and you try and display it in Newsboat, what's going to happen is it will ignore the description tag and just display the content encoded tab. And that's why we have to have the actual description inside this content encoded tab, because otherwise the description is not going to show up. And that's the gist of the actual style sheet. So what I'm going to do is actually pull this down, and let me just go to the desktop. Okay, so what I've done here is download the XML for the thing, and what you'll see in the description is you've also got these bits of code, ampersand pound 13 semicolon, right? Basically, this is some kind of formatting issue with this particular channel. I don't know, they've just sort of done the description in something like Word and pasted it in. But what we need to do is actually use sed to replace that with line breaks, the BR tag, because otherwise what will happen is in Newsboat it will just render it as one huge chunk of text. Okay, so that's the actual doodah. So what I'm going to do is show you how we can manipulate this on the command line. So what I'm going to do is just copy the style sheet, Newsboat style sheet. So what we got here is the youtube-rss.xsl style sheet. And what we're going to do is run xsltproc -o output.xml. And so what we're doing here is running xsltproc, outputting it as XML. We're using the style sheet and we're taking the XML file. So when I run that and I come to the output, what you'll see is it's been completely changed. And what we have here, if I show you, we got this section here, content encoded, C data, and then we got the image, the width, the height, the source. We've got the H1 tag and the href with the actual link to the video. And then what we have is the title in the href. Then we've got the description in paragraphs. And you'll actually see here, this hasn't been run through sed. So we've still got this funny bit of code. But what I wanted to do is show you how it actually can be converted on the command line. what I'm going to do now is if I run w3m on this output file here, you'll see that it just displays it as the source code. However, if I run w3m-t text-html out file, what you'll see is actually displaying the images and the text. And what you'll notice also is that all the images down here are kind of like off. This is just an issue if you're just using w3m to display the whole thing, which we wouldn't be doing in Newsboat. So that's not a problem. That's just you know, an issue this sort of with this sort of setup, demoing it in w3m. So that's how we can convert the file, get the image in. We've got the text here. You can see here, normally, I say, because this hadn't been run through sed and I haven't added the BR tags, you can see how this all comes up in one big chunk of code, yeah? So that's why we've got to run it through sed to basically search for empty lines and add a line break. So that's how we do it on the command line. And if I just run Newsboat again, see if it will actually, it may not display here because of caching issues. Let me see. No, it does work. So yeah, and what we got up here, we got this section up here we can't change. And on this one, the link does actually work. You see, that's actually a link, but on some of them, the link will actually be split over 2 lines up here, and so it doesn't work. So that's why we have to create this h1 tag down here and extract the link. So we've always got the link. We've got the link here. And as I showed you in previous videos, there's actually a way to get w3m to automatically open YouTube links with MPV by just clicking on them like that. So give this a second, it's going to load up. There we go. It's big venti. So we've got everything in place. We've got the image, we've got the link. We can click the link and it's going to open in MP3. We've got all the links working here, and as you can see, this is all separated now because we've run it through sed. So it's replaced all those nasty formatting tags that were included in the feed, the feed, and it's replaced them with BR tags, so that instead of one big chunk of text, we've got everything sort of nicely separated down here. All the links working, and we've got the views and the likes, which you don't normally get in the Newsboat feed. That's all good, and as I say, I can just go through any of these like this. And the other thing that I should mention is in w3m by default, if you press Q, it will ask you to confirm if you want to quit. So what you have to do is press Shift Q to get rid of that prompt. But if I press 0 on O on the keyboard in w3m and come through the settings and search for quit, what you'll see here, confirm when quitting with Q, and we set that to no. So what that does is that just means when I go through these, I can just press Q instead of Shift Q, because I'm lazy and I just want to press 1 key instead of 2. And it's just a much nicer experience. I can just go through these. I can tab down here. So when I'm up at the top, if I just press tab, it's going to take me to the link here. Because as you can see in this example, the link is split, and so you wouldn't be able to click it. So I just press tab, and I can just press return. That's going to open in a second. Here we go. And we've got all the text here, and we've got the views. So I've set that up for all my feeds here. So much nicer than the regular boring sort of feed that you get with Newsboat. And actually, while I remember, what I want to do is show you something else. Select one that's not working. I think that's just a caching issue because I've been playing around with stuff. So the other thing I want to mention is word wrapping or text wrapping. You can see this text goes the full width of the page, whereas in Newsboat you have an option to set a width, the text. You don't have that in W3M. W3M doesn't have an option to set the width of the page. There is a columns option, a cols-cols option that you have to use with the -dump option in W3M. So you can run W3M-dump -cols80 and pipe it into a new file. Problem with that, it dumps all as plain text, so you don't get the image, you don't get any HTML. So you can't use the W3M dump cols option to actually set the width of the text. The other thing that you can do is the terminal. Was it tput? Get what the option is. There's a command called tput will actually show you the number of columns your terminal is set to. There's a command called stty, I think it is. stty, yeah. And what you can do with this is you can actually set the columns that your terminal takes up. So you can say set stty to 80, and that will set everything to be displayed at a maximum of 80 characters in your terminal. But then what happens is that will persist and affect any new things you do in the terminal. You can create a variable to count the current terminal columns and then set stty to 80 and then reset it. Problem is when you do that, what happens is I'll just come back into one of these. What will happen is if you do that, it will actually wrap the text to 80. But what it will also do is it will break all the URLs, because if there's a URL like here, you can see it's broken because this one's here. But if we had this set to say 80 columns in the terminal, it doesn't break, it doesn't break the text at any particular point. It will just break the text there. So what will happen is it will actually break a URL across 2 lines, and what that will mean is that the URL won't work. So basically, the long and short of that explanation is there's no way to set the wrapping, the text wrapping in W3M without breaking all the links. Okay, so there's nothing we can do about that. Just got to sort of put up with it. So that's just another explanation of why stuff's sort of formatted in a particular way. And again, this section up here, unfortunately, this isn't affected by the HTML renderer or pager, so there are also no config options on how this is formatted. So this basically just goes across these lines like this. You can't remove it. It's actually been raised as an issue on the Newsboat GitHub page, and currently waiting someone to fix it. So we can't do anything about that. So you just have to, you can take with one hand, get something with one hand and take it away with another hand. So what we've got is we got the images in, we got the link, we got the text, we got it all separated, and we've additionally got the likes and the views. So the advantage of this is that if you're using an older version of Newsboat that ships with Ubuntu 20.04, it won't display the description at all. Yeah, you won't get the description. You will just get a little box at the top that says, YouTube, the title and the link, and that's it. You won't get any description at all. So this is good because if you've got an older version of Newsboat, what this will mean is that you'll actually be able to read the text as well as have the image. So that's how we can get Newsboat to actually display images. Again, this is the Newsboat documentation. And what we've got is we've got two things. We've got execute and filter, and these are snow news sort of extensions that have been added to Newsboat. And the difference that I found is, although they may look similar, they actually behave completely differently. What happens with the filter is that Newsboat sort of downloads a temporary file of the article, which can then be run through the filter script and output as XML. Whereas when I found the execute one, what that will do is you actually have to, in the script, use curl, download the feed, and then pipe it through stuff. So I didn't have any luck with the execute one, the execute function here. So that's why I'm using the filter. And this is the sort of format you have. You've got filter, colon, the path to the script, colon, and then the actual URL. So as you can see, what you can do is you can sort of put it in double quotes like this. But that's the gist of how it works. That's how the Snow News filters and extensions work. And you can see here, these were the scripts and the actual filters. And so this is the Atom to RSS script originally. I think this has got a new, it's been, the repository looks like it might have been transferred to someone else, but it was originally written by a guy called René Pouls. So I will add this copyright section back into the script. But as I say, what I had to do was go through and actually butcher it to get it to work. So there were several things that I had to change to get this to work. If I come through my notes, I had to add the encoding tag, obviously put in all this custom code here, the C data, I had to go through and manually pull all this stuff out. And what I'm also doing is, by default, if I come across here, you can see the media thumbnail is actually set to 480/360. So if I copy that, open that in a new tab. This is 480/360, and what I'm doing is I'm just changing the, I'm just setting it to a width of 640 by 480. So what you have is you've got different URLs for these thumbnails. So this is the hqdefault.jpg, which is the 480/360 size. If you change this to SD default, that gives you the 640/480. So it's a bit confusing. The standard definition one is bigger than the high quality definition one, so go figure. And I couldn't figure out a way to programmatically sort of change the, the HQ to SD. So basically all I did was just, bodged it, changed the width and the height to 640/480. And you're not going to notice really. There's no pixelation or anything, so it was just simpler to do that than trying to manipulate the text and stuff about. It was just an easy, quick fix. So that we've got a bigger image in Newsboat to display stuff. So this section here also, disable output escaping. Yes, this is needed to escape the text, because this is like kind of encodes stuff or ignores the encoding. So there was many things I had to figure out how to get this to work, how to actually work with XSL style sheets, and go through and pull out different bits, and actually figuring out that I need to have stuff in the content encoded tag followed by C data. So what I've got is two sections of C data here, the description, and also I needed to wrap some other section in C data tag. So if I just switch back to here, what you'll see, this is the actual C data tag, followed by the HTML. So what I'm just going to do is actually go through the script. So bin youtube-rss, of course you can call this whatever you want. So basically all this script does, with a helicopter flying overhead, probably Barrett's. Barrett's was a company that did adverts in the 80s, if you don't know what that is, where they used to fly a helicopter over the properties they were trying to sell. Anyway, what this is running xsltproc, and this is the path to the style sheet. So that's home. So in scripts, you should always use home instead of a tilde. So home, config, Newsboat, style sheets, YouTube, RSS. $1, that's the argument that is actually passed to the script from Newsboat, which is the URL. Then what we have to do is pipe that out using the pipe symbol, and we're piping that into sed. And what we're doing here is we're running sed twice. As you can see, what we're doing is we're searching for this text that was specifically on the Magpie channel, bad formatting that they've got, and we have to escape the ampersand here because the ampersand has special meaning in sed. What the ampersand means is basically match everything. So we have to escape the ampersand. Oh, my tea's gone cold. And then what we have is this this star. So that basically what this does is this matches this code any number of times it appears in the document. And what it does is it replaces it with the BR tag, and then we set global, so it applies it globally. Then we have a comma here, and then what we're doing is we're piping it through sed again to catch other chunks of text, because as I said, what happens is in YouTube everything is just one block of text, okay? It's just plain text. And what we're doing is we're actually using sed to search for empty lines. So this is how you search for an empty line in sed. We've got the $sign, we've got the caret followed by the $sign. So caret, beginning of the line, $sign, end of the line. And basically what that means is any line that's got nothing in it. So any blank lines, what we're going to do is replace them with BR tags. So if I come back into Newsboat, go to Adam Pearson. Okay, so if I press, what is it, V on the keyboard, what you'll see here is this is the source code view. And this is what I was talking about here, is you can see this section up the top is just plain text. There's no HTML formatting here. So that's why it gets displayed all as one chunk like that. And there's no way to actually manipulate this using style sheets or sed or any other tools. It's not affected by the page or renderer. There's no configuration options that I know of that you can actually use to style it or suppress it. But basically, all you need to, if it was possible, all you'd need to do to fix this would be add BR tags before title, author, date, and link, and that would actually get it to display like that. But unfortunately, we don't have that option. So, you know, we just got to live with the funky text at the top. But as you can see here, what we got is the image, and what you'll notice just down here, you can see, you may just be able to see that bit of text poking out. And if I scroll down, you can see it says image, and that's the alt tag. What I found, as I said, you don't have the alt tag set up in the image, it won't display in W3M, and there isn't a way I've kind of found to not show it. So you may sort of notice, you know, a little bit of text poking through there. So that's one little minor bugbear, but you know, that's a minor thing. So as I said, we can just, from here, if I tab, that will take me to that link there. But as I said, the issue is on some of the article feeds, that link is actually split, as I showed you, across 2 lines. So that's why this is here. So this is the actual link to the video. So we've got the title with the actual link, so we can copy and we can click on it. And if I just come across to my W3M config, so W3M, and where is it? Is it config? No, it's not config. Site config. So what you see here is this is the .w3m/site config file. And in a previous video, I showed you how you can actually use this to run CGI scripts on particular kinds of links. So you can see here, what we're doing is we're matching youtube.com watch $, and we're saying an exact match. And what we're doing is we're saying substitute URL file CGI bin video.cgi ? So what this does is this will intercept any YouTube links in W3M, redirect them to this script, video CGI, and basically what this script does is it will take the link and actually open up MPV. So it'll either work with something that's got a link on a video embedded on the page, or actually when you click a link. And additionally, what I'm doing is I'm using a program called Task Spooler, which I saw in Got Blue's video. And actually, after many years of thinking it's pronounced Got Blue, it's actually supposed to be God Bless You. Not that you'd be able to figure that out from the his YouTube channel name, but that's where I found out about Task Spooler. And Task Spooler is a really cool application because what it will allow you to do is execute several commands one after another. So what you can do with Task Spooler is click on a video link, it will start playing, then you can click on another link and it will actually queue it up to be played after the first link. So if I come across into here, what I can do is I can either, in this view, I can either press my keyboard shortcut and this will give me these options. So I can play the audio and download it and put it full screen and do video. The other thing I should mention is, you've never heard of Sponsor Block. Sponsor Block is a open source collaborative effort to mark portions of videos on YouTube that have sponsored segments and actually allow you to remove those segments. So that's something that can actually also be set up. So when you're sort of downloading a video or something, it will actually remove all the sponsored segments from it. But as I was saying, I can come through any of these links and I can just go full screen or video, and what it will do is it will play the video, and I can go through and just queue videos up, go video, and it will actually queue them all up. And I can do the same thing actually from within this view as well. So if I come down here I can either press return on the keyboard and it's going to open the video up, or I can type video, give it a couple of seconds.
Right then, guys.
And you can see Rubenstein there, full screen. So I've got two options here. I can either press my keyboard shortcut, which gives me these options, which is an FZF menu that I showed you in a previous W3M video, or I can just press return on any YouTube link. And what it's going to do, you can see here it's queuing it up, and what I've got it set up to do is actually open automatically on my second display full screen. So that's really nice. So that's basically using the video CGI script that I showed you. So any YouTube link, all I've got to do, press return, and it's going to open up the video. So this is something that's been bugging me for ages. It just really got my goat. So if I just let me just come back to I can find the doodah, Newsboat config, and remind you how this looks by default. So I'm just going to quit that. So by default, if I come across into my config and I turn off the pager and the external and the HTML renderer. Okay, so by default, this is what you get in Newsboat. This is what you get. And as I said, if you're on an older version of Newsboat, that's all you'll see. You'll only see this section at the top. You won't see the description at all. And it just really bugged the hell out of me that I couldn't see the image. And I could see that in the feed here, we've got all this stuff. We've got, we've got the title, we've got the thumbnail. There's a thumbnail in the XML, but it's not in the description. And the description's the bit that gets displayed. And as you can see, just a big chunk of plain text. So really bugged me how dull this was to look at compared to actually coming across and, actually seeing the page with the image. So what I've tried to do is actually replicate the layout, where what we have is we've got the image followed by title, which I've turned into a link, and then the description. And what I've done is I've actually put the views and the likes at the bottom because, well, I felt like it just made more sense to have them at the bottom rather than before the description. So this was the sort of layout I wanted to actually create. So I just come back here and quit this. Newsboat. So that's just much nicer in my opinion. And as you can see, this is when I was talking about actually separating the text out. So by default, if I view this, what I did was I pressed V on the keyboard in W3M, and what you'll see here is we've got the image, then what we have is the actual text, and the text is actually in a paragraph tag. Probably can't see it, it's up here off screen. And then what we've got is BRs between all these lines. So the way this would be displayed is actually there would be empty lines here, but when you viewed it in W3M, because there's no HTML, it just shoehorns it into one big chunk of text, which is not nice to read. So that's why we've got to pipe it through sed, search for the empty lines, replace the empty lines with BR tags. Once we do that, we then get the text to have some separation between the actual blocks of text. So again, we've got the 640 480 image. And just press tab down here. We can click on this, it's going to open the video. We've got all the text here. And again, in W3M, what you want to do is press O on the keyboard and search for or is it display link URL automatically? Yeah, that's one. So we're just looking around the mic. So you want to set the link URL automatically to yes, and what that does is that turns any links that it finds into actual clickable URLs. So as you can see, you get this sort of effect in W3M if you scroll up and down. So what I'd advise you to do is, rather than scrolling to the thing like that and the image flickering and just sort of, you know, going a bit haywire, just press tab twice and that will take you, or once, and that will take you to the link here. You can click that, it's going to open the video. Then you've got all the text here where you can read it and you can actually see the views and the likes at the bottom. So that's how we managed to get Newsboat to display images when it won't display images, and we get it to display a XML file that doesn't have an image in the actual description. We did that with the filters from Snow News in Newsboat, and what we had to do was we had to create this XSL style sheet. Right here, this is the XSL style sheet that I've sort of modified from the original version, which was last on about 5 years ago. Then again, what we had is this is the actual the setup. So I'll just quickly go through the setup once again. Put links to all this under the video. Basically, all you need to do is download the script, move it to your bin directory, make it executable. Next step, you install xsltproc, sudo apt install xsltproc. Then what we did was we created a directory where we're going to put the style sheet. So make directory -p config Newsboat style sheets. We then copied the youtube-rss.xsl style sheet to config Newsboat style sheets, and that's the actual style sheet. And after that, what we did was we edited our Newsboat config, and we set these two options: the HTML renderer to be user bin w3m, and what that does is that renders the article in actual source code. And then in the pager, what we do is we set it to w3m with the -t text HTML, so that it actually takes the source code and renders it as HTML. Okay, so that's the two bits that get it working. And then in Newsboat, your actual config, your Newsboat URLs, that should be config Newsboat URLs. We had this syntax. We got double quotes filter : after the YouTube RSS script, and then the YouTube channel or playlist, the tag, and that's how we give it the actual name that gets displayed in Newsboat. And then finally, in W3M, we set the link to display automatically yes, and I think that's display link 1 in your Newsboat config. So that's the basic setup, and it took a hell of a long time to actually get this to work, because as I said, there's like multiple things that you need to actually do. You have to go through the style sheet and pull all this stuff out, and this was all the bit that really did my head in. You've got to have the content encoded tag followed by C data, and then you can have the HTML. And this is how we can sort of parse the XML file with this style sheet to pull out various attributes and sort of create bits of HTML. So essentially what we're doing is we're creating mini HTML pages that get displayed in W3M. The reason why we have to do that is because you can't browse YouTube with W3M. They've blocked it. So you can't go to a YouTube page with W3M. So if I take this link and I go w3m. Oh, I think what it may have done is it trying to queue something or something? But we can't actually display that page with W3M. Normally what it does is just display like an empty sort of search thing or something. So to get around that, say what we've done is we've essentially created mini web pages. So here's Gotblut. So this is what Gotblut. It should be God bless you. I don't know how you go from Gotblut to God bless you, but there you go. Excellent channel. And so I can just open this up. Again, we don't have the text wrapping as I explained, but we've got the image, we've got the link, and we've got the description here with the views and likes, which you don't get in Newsboat at all. It doesn't display that. And again, in W3M, by default, what you have to do is press Shift Q to exit without being prompted yes or no. But you can just change that as I showed you in the config. So you just got to press Q. So what it means is I can just come through here, bang, Q, and just, you know, I can tab down here, and as I said, what I can do is I can actually queue up multiple videos just by clicking the links. So in my opinion, it's just a big improvement on the standard way of displaying YouTube feeds in Newsboat, because by default it's dull as ditch water. So, you know, want some images with this stuff. So I've got all these here, apart from this one. These are query feeds. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll show you what query feeds are. The query feeds will actually, I've got it set so that it will display everything that's tagged with a particular tag and show me only the unread thing. So as you can see here, you know, there's like 15 items here, but it's just going to, instead of showing all the unread all the articles, it's showing just the unread ones. So I can just come through here, bang, so I can come through, quit. So these are query feeds. I'll show that in a second, but you see all of these are set up with this filter, and you can see loads instantly. There's no sort of no lag while it's running everything through the script, and it's just much nicer experience. So what I'll do is just quickly go through the query feeds, the URL. So what we've got here is this is how you set up query feeds. Query, and this is the sort of name. So we've got query, and then we're giving it a name, and then what we're doing is saying unread equals yes, and tags. And you can see what we've got down here is we've got the tags down here. So that was sort of like the old format without the filter that I was using to show you what it looks like before and after. But as you can see here, we've got these are all the tags. So Newcastle, 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 Linux, General, OBS, Emacs. These correspond to all these things here. So we're doing basically query, you give it a name that shows up in Newsboat. So like Newcastle, General, Linux, Emacs, OBS. Those are the names. And what we do is we say unread equals yes, and tags equals, and that's the syntax for actually selecting the tags. So that's how you can set sort of query feeds to show particular tags and only the unread articles. That's just another thing I wanted to get to show you, but there's no lag when this launches. And so you can just go through all these, quit, This is when Adam Pearson got kicked out for filming on in Newcastle, which is obviously against the law. Can't film anything in Premier League grounds. But yeah, you can basically go through any of these, open them up, and you'll have the image, the link, the text, the views, and the likes, and it's just a much nicer experience. And it's just something that's been bugging me for ages. No one else was going to fix it, so I thought I'd give it a go. And yeah, it was a bit of a challenge. As I said, Newsboat doesn't display images, and the feed doesn't have any images in it. So, you know, there was a bit of a challenge to get over and figure out all the ins and outs, and actually how the file's got to be formatted. The XML's got to be formatted to actually get it to work in Newsboat and W3M. But as you can see, finally got there. I'd say one or two little niggles in, you know, this bit up here, which we can't change, and the actual word wrapping. But as I said, the issue with the word wrapping is, although you can do it with by setting STTY, the particular column width, it will actually break all the URLs in the text. So that's why I'm not going to advise you to try that. And again, the dump and the cold option in W3M will output rendered HTML, but as plain text without any HTML or any images. So that's why we can't use the cold option. It will just display it as plain text, and why we can't use the STTY option, because that would break the URLs. But it's a minor niggle, and you know, something I can live with. I also thought about, maybe could you create a table and put all this in a table and then set a width on the table, but that doesn't work either. Setting width on a table in W3M to like 800 pixels or something, it just ignores it. It just puts it full screen. So that's all the steps, and I'll put links to everything under the video. This is the documentation. This is the original script, and this is the sort of guide on what you need to do to get set up. Not many steps. Download a couple of things, make them executable, move them to place, change a few things in your config, and we got the script there and the style sheet. So I put all links to this under the video, and hope that makes Newsboat a bit more useful for viewing YouTube feeds rather than the dull, boring bits of text you normally have to put up with. Just makes it a bit nicer to actually have a nice big image, you know, headline, you know, an H1, some formatted text, and the likes and the views. So that's all for now. I'll put all the links to this under the video, and give it a go and see if that's any improvement on the bog standard Newsboat that you're normally used to.